Good evening and welcome to the first online meetup at BlockchainLab Drenthe. My name is Adrie Wisman and I'm your host and one of the speakers of the evening. As you can see, there's a chat window on the right where you can ask your questions. And for those who don't know us, let me do some introduction. Our meetup is a spin-off from BlockchainLab Drenthe, and we organize monthly meetups on the third Thursday of the month. The goal we have is to spread knowledge of blockchain and distributed ledger technology in an informal way, but also general knowledge about cryptos, etc. We're not very crypto-minded, but since cryptos are the main application on blockchain so far, it's also a part of our research we do. We try to be a lighthouse for small and medium enterprises and for educational institutes and governmental bodies in the field of distributed ledger technology. We have a format we use for our meetups. We tend to speak a little bit about markets and cryptos in general. Then we have a general topic and a technical topic for the evening. And today I will be doing markets and news, as you can see. My name is on that part of the agenda. The second part of the agenda is Zero Knowledge Proof Revisited, which will be done by my colleague Jeroen Wester. And the last part of the presentation will be about real-life blockchain applications by Danny Breves. Like I said, please ask your questions in the chat window, and we will try to keep up with that. And I will ask the presenter the questions you will type in there. I will go straight on to the next segment, and which is markets and cryptos. We always start with a little comparison to our last meetup. The last meetup we did was in February because in March, because of the pandemic, we had no meetup at all. But here you can see a screenshot from CoinMarketCap, where the top 10 biggest cryptos are listed. This is a list about 100. And as you can see in the top left corner, there are more than 5,000 different crypto currencies listed on exchanges. This is what was in February, but I will switch over to April now. And one of the most surprisingly things you can see is that although people thought we were going to have an enormous bull run in cryptos, because of the pandemic, people like to flee into commodities like gold, etc. There was a slight decrease in value in the cryptos markets, and we went from a total market cap of 277 billion to 201 billion, 202 billion, which means a loss of $75.5 billion, which is roughly minus 27%. So the big bull run didn't come. That 27% is about the same as it was for Bitcoin, because that went down for about 26%. Ethereum went down 34% in the last 2 months, and Ripple 31%. So I can imagine that people like crypto investors are not the most happy people at the moment. But they probably will stay optimistic and see what will be coming. We all know the people that are going to tell that the prices of Bitcoin will be going to 100,000 at least. This was one of the sheets that you see we used for our last meetup. In February, we already talked about blockchain and coronavirus, and what you could do with the application of blockchain in the pandemic, about censorship, about the numbers of people that were sick or even died. At this time, the application of blockchain at the coronavirus, the pandemic is bigger than ever. Even the Dutch Blockchain Coalition is getting involved, and in Holland we are looking at a new coronavirus app, which can trace if you met other people who had the virus or are contaminated with the virus. Is probably going to be based on distributed ledger technology. So there is a special task force which is working on a combination of a distributed ledger for coronavirus crisis applications. I'll go to the next slide. And what we can see the last few weeks is that although Bitcoin is one of the biggest market caps in the market for cryptos, 63-64% of all money which was invested is invested in Bitcoin, and the other percentage, which is 37, is spread all over all alternative coins. Even while that is so, the daily volume of Ethereum is about the same as the daily trading volume in Bitcoin. So people are getting more interested in Ethereum and Ethereum-based coins like Tether and some other stable coins. So it looks like there is a lot of volume crossing over from Bitcoin to Ethereum. That it is a pandemic, that it is a disastrous time, is what you can see here. That even though a loudmouth like Mr. John McAfee, who is screaming about Bitcoin and telling everybody it will go to 100,000 or even 1 million, at this moment he says, well, better buy peanut butter because I have no clue where it is going. Of course, he says that fiat money is going to be burned and that crypto is going to win. But at the moment, he has no clue where it is going. And well, to me, it tells that when he doesn't have any words to say, then nobody has any words to say. All right, the market is clueless on where it is going. We always have a returning item within our markets part, which is about scams. Every month, I always talk about a scam, and this time I'm talking about that Google Chrome and the Google Play Store. They removed 49 different phishing extensions that steal cryptocurrency data. We all use Chrome and all these nice extensions for printing, for all kinds of super stuff, for bookmarks, etc. Well, it turns out that 49 of these extensions in the Google Play Store were trying to get your private key and all other kind of data so they can use your cryptos and steal your cryptos. When they started researching that, it turned out that from those 49, most of them were traceable back to one party that produced all these extensions. So the world has become a little bit safer. Now Google is watching out for us. And Google extensions are a big threat to people and their wallets, their currencies, their cryptocurrencies. Let me see. My next slide is. Oh, I've come to the end of my slide, which means that I'm going to turn you over to my colleague and presenter Jeroen. And Jeroen is a co-founder of BlockchainLab, like I am and like Jenny is. Jeroen, please introduce yourself and tell the people what you are going to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adri. I would say I thought I was saying Denny, but you are Adri, obviously. Thank you for the introduction. Jeroen Wester, founder, co-founder of the BlockchainLab, and long-time presenter in these meetups. And again, today I'm going to talk again about zero-knowledge proof, which is becoming one of my favorite topics, thanks to all the people in the blockchain lab. Adri, are my slides already visible? Yes. So probably you see now my title slide. There's a bit of a challenge here because Adri is the one who's controlling my slides. So we have a kind of video connection in which I have to remotely control Adri in playing the slides forward or backwards. But the title of the presentation is Zero Knowledge Proof, the New Gold. And as you all know, presentations with the questions in the title probably are going to answer that question with a no. However, this presentation will answer it with a yes, but. So that's the end of it. But when I go to the second slide, you will see that we have 6 points to cover. So, and I think it will take me about 15 or 20 minutes to rush you through these topics. And luckily for you, there is even a demonstration in this presentation. So that's one of the highlights of this talk. And it is not a blockchain only talk. It will be more an architectural talk in which blockchain has an important part or an important input, but it's more a privacy architecture talk. Before I dive into all the topics that I will cover, there is one thing that I would like to ask people looking at the live stream. If you would like, we always ask people to, if they are attending our meeting, and we always pass a paper list to all the people. If you would like to say that you are present in this meeting, would you say hi in the chat? So then we have a list of people that want to register. This is a running gag in these meetings for 2.5 years now. But if you would like to, then we have a list that we can show to our sponsor, who always wants to know who is attending our meetings. And our sponsor, Adri already told it, is Interreg, the Blink project, and people of the Blink project are also attending this meetup. Hi guys. Okay, back to the talk. We will go once again into Alibaba's cave. We did that last time when I was talking about zero knowledge proof. We'll do that again. And then I think the most interesting parts of this presentation will probably be the demonstration and the possibilities. Okay, let's frame the presentation. It's a presentation about zero knowledge proof, and yes, it is blockchain related. But as I already mentioned, it extends that field by talking about privacy. And let me tell you why that is important. We all know that blockchain brought us a lot of good things, great things even. One of the beautiful things with blockchain is that you have this beautiful mechanism of blocks where every new block contains more or less the history of the previous block. It's not the history, but it has a relation with previous blocks. And this beautiful mechanism built around and hashing hashes prevents the tampering of data. So I cannot change data that's previously added to the blockchain. This is a very great thing. Another nice thing that blockchain brought us is that it has a distributed truth. Enables distributed systems without a centralized power. And when you look at this slide, you see that when you have a centralized truth, there is one single point that has the truth in your system, And when you want to know something that is really true, you have to go to that system, ask it, and then go back. But in a distributed truth system, which is in many blockchain architectures the case, then the truth is distributed over all nodes in that network. Great thing. But then let's go to one of the things that may be not so very good. Because all these nice things, they came at the cost of lack of privacy. So when you take Bitcoin, for example, you can see everyone who made a transaction in what block and at what time. So the big thing that the whole field is up to now is how can we combine this beautiful transparency, this beautiful distributed architecture, this prevention of data tampering, and how can we combine that with well-preserved privacy? Well, there are, oh wow, Adri, I have to tell you when I go to next slide, so I don't know, can you...
I'm already at 6.
Yeah, you are at 6, which is very good. Okay. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Okay.
7. So what happened in the last years? We got new coins, Zcash, Monero. Well, back then there were new coins that tried to solve this problem of privacy. And Monero took the road of solving the privacy problem by obfuscation. It tried to make a kind of digital smoke curtain in which it was very hard to see what was going on. You could not guess what's going on. And this attempt to make data private always generates a big discussion because it's not really privacy by design, but it is privacy by hiding important things. And maybe that's a discussion between the hardline theory people and the pragmatic people. And I don't know, I don't have a clear position in that, but you see that the discussion is going on. The Zcash people, they took another way of looking at privacy. And they thought about adding zero-knowledge proof algorithms to their system that could make it, that will make it impossible or nearly impossible to see what's going on. They could encrypt transactions. They could make sure that validations of transactions is also done with without the lack of privacy. And when you talk about Zcash, you see these beautiful acronyms called Zero Knowledge Snarks and Zero Knowledge Starks. And well, they have, there's a big deal of math behind it. But the magic is that while these transactions are encrypted, these Zcash transactions are encrypted, and therefore only visible for the owner, they still can be verified by the system. Beautiful. Okay, so on the next slide, zero knowledge proof pattern, we see a kind of blueprint pattern that is important for zero knowledge proof systems, or systems that make use of zero knowledge proof algorithms. And that's, I think, the major point of this presentation. What I would like to see, what I would like to demonstrate to you is that even though data is encrypted and only visible for the person who has the key to decrypt the encrypted data, you can still make computations with it. Okay, but that's later on. We now go to the second part of the presentation, Alibaba's cave. And this is a special cave because there's no treasure and there are no 40 thieves, but the cave looks like a circle. On the next slide, we see that. In this cave, the cave has a circular shape, and there are two persons standing in front of that cave. One of them is called Victor, the man, and the other one is called Peggy, the girl or the woman. And this special cave has a door, and that door is invisible at the entrance of the cave. You cannot see the door. The door is at the far end of the cave. And Peggy, she claims that she knows the secret to that door, because you need a secret to open this this door. And people who know the fairy tale of Alibaba, they probably know what the secret is, but well, Victor isn't that literate, so he did not know this story. And Peggy claims that she has it. Victor, he challenges her, and he says, well, if you say that you have it, please tell me what the secret is. But Peggy is extremely cautious. And that is an important part of the story, that she is extremely cautious. She doesn't want to share that secret, and she only wants Victor to know that she knows it. Nobody else, only Victor can know it. And now they do a little experiment. Victor, he stays at the entrance of the cave. Peggy enters the cave, and she randomly chooses to go route A or go route B. Victor cannot see what route she takes. She takes it randomly. And then when we go to the next slide, step 2, Victor goes into the cave, but not to the end. And he calls route A or route B, or better, A or B. And in the third step, next slide, Victor checks if Peggy took the route that he called for, in this case, route A. And when Peggy does so, that could be proof that she really has a secret to the door. But because Victor did not see what route she initially took, you have to repeat this example a few times in order to be really sure that she does it, because there is also a chance that she took route A and he called route A, and then she doesn't have to open the door, she just can go out. But a few weeks ago, I talked to someone and say, but why can't you do this simpler in the next slide? Why can't Victor see what path Peggy takes? So why does Victor have to stay out of the cave? And this is an important part of the zero knowledge proof approach. Because when Victor would see what route Peggy would initially take, then it would be clear to Victor that she really knows the secret. And it took me a while to figure out why that was important. It is important in this story because it would be too much information for Victor to know. Peggy would give away too much. She only wants to show in a very abstract way that she knows the secret. If Victor would record a session in which you could see that Peggy would take route A or to route B to the door, then he could show to the whole world that Peggy is in fact owner of this secret. And that is not what Peggy would like to disclose. She would only like to see for Victor that she can go, that she can leave the cave at the right route. So that's the reason why Victor cannot see what route she takes initially. On the next slide, you see an alternative way to explain zero knowledge proof, and it is the where is Wally approach. On the left-hand side of this slide, you see a incorrect version of where is Wally, because you see a lot of Wallies here. But normally these pictures are very large pictures with a lot of people, drawn figures on it. And somewhere in this picture, there is only one Wally. Now you see many Wallies here. But imagine that you are playing this game with somebody else. And the two of you, you are the one who has found Wally in this picture. And you say to your co-player, yes, I found Wally. And he said, don't tell me, because I want to keep looking for him. But can you give me proof that you have found Wally? And you say, okay, I have proof. What I have is this big sheet of paper with a small cutout. And I will put that over my where is Wally picture. And I will show you where Wally is. And then you have the proof that I have found Wally. When you close your eyes, you will take the paper off with the cutout, and then you continue your game. But I can show you that I have the proof without revealing where Wally in this picture really is. It comes to mind that you have great ways of cheating with this, but this is a way to explain it. Okay, we go to the general idea. The next slide, please. This is the most conceptual part of the presentation, so stay with me, but luckily it's not very complicated. So that's the good news. When we go to the next slide, you see the slide that I already showed you. The basic idea is that you have private data that is private for you, that you do not want others to know about. And there is some public mechanism, a storage, or a kind of service, public service. And that needs, and in this public service, they have to work with your private data without knowing what this data is about. Now, how can that work? In many systems today, you have to disclose that data. So the bank knows about your bank account and knows how much money there is in your bank account. But is there a way that you could work with a bank account where the bank does not know anything about your bank account, does not know how much money you have? Let me show you how that could be done. Imagine that on the private side, you have this data that you made a deposit of 250 euros. And you encrypt this deposit. You encrypt this data. So now it's only visible for you. And this encrypted data, you pass it on to a public storage, a public service, maybe a new kind of bank account. For everyone to see, but when people see it, it's impossible to see what it means. Only you know that the secret there is that you have these 250 euros. Now in step 2, next slide, you do the same and you do it for 150 euros. And again, there is this record encrypted that's on the public side, and it's for everyone to see, but the data is hidden. Now in step 3, there is the magic in the next slide. Is it now possible that you can do the following thing? You're asking the public side, which doesn't know anything about your data, how much money do I have? And this public side, without knowing anything about the data, only knowing the encrypted data, says, okay, no problem. I will add the 2 because you asked me. And by adding them, there is again generated a new encrypted data thing that is sent back to the owner. It comes green again, but it's still encrypted. And by decrypting it with your private key, you can see, oh wow, I have 400 euros. This is a magic thing, because on the private side, you have access to your data, but on the public side, you do not know anything about the contents of the data, but you can still help people by, in this case, adding the two records, the two things. I will give you a demonstration on how that works. It had to be live, I think, originally, but it's a kind of complicated for this setup. So for the demonstration, this is where the Harry Potter magic is happening, and it's real, but it's now a slide demonstration. So when I go to step 0, I have to put on my glasses because it's too small on my screen. When I am in step 1, you see here a demonstration that does exactly what I tried to explain to you in the previous 3 slides. Again, you see here a client and you see a server. And I can instruct the client in step 1, next slide, that I have an amount of, under the X, you see it, 1, and under the I, 1 times 150. But my client side makes for the 1 on X and the Y, it makes hashed or encrypted or whatever things makes it out of it. And I do again the same for my 250 amount in step 2. So now I've got my transactions, I've got them encrypted, but they're still on the client side. Under my control, I can encrypt them with the same key. I can probably decrypt them, but I cannot. But to do the magic thing, I have to transfer them to the server. That's done in step 3. And in step 3, there is now something, the same encrypted things are available to the server. In step 4, the server makes a computation. It makes a computation by multiplying the X and the Y's. So it multiplies this 1 with 150, and there comes something, an encrypted version, and the 1 with the 250, and there comes an encrypted version of that computation out of it. On the server side, because of the lack of the private key, the server does not know what's happening here. It's just doing these computations. And to add to this magic, in step 5, the server computes the sum of the 2 products. And again, this is something that is unknown to the server side. In step 6, this result, the sum, is sent back to the client. Wow, cool. But could it now be possible to decrypt this sum again and to see the original amount for the client's eyes only? That's done in step 7. So decrypting it with the same key leads to the 400 euro amount. Well, this is done when you do it in a browser, real life. It's very interesting, very magical, where you exactly have this situation. The client, because he or she owns the private key, is capable of decrypting. The server side is capable of doing the magic or delivering the service without knowing what's the real content of that data. Very cool, very magical. Okay, I go to 5 possibilities. What could you do with these kinds of architectures, with these kinds of algorithms? I'm now at slide 30 out of the possible zero-knowledge proof applications. Just a small selection, because it's mind-boggling. You can do almost anything with it. But there are also a few buts. We'll come to that later. Well, of course, authentication would be very nice. To prove your identity without the verifier learning a password. It would be very good. Blockchain transaction validation. It would increase the privacy level of blockchain transactions, of course. We just talked about it earlier on. But it would also add privacy to crypto coins, and that will probably increase the trust in these coins, because now when you now get some Bitcoins, you can see the history of these Bitcoins also, and would you like to receive Bitcoins that are used for money laundering, for instance, or for child labor? Probably not. So when this money becomes more abstract or less, doesn't have an history, you're probably going to use it. I don't know if that's ethical good or not, but that's something that will probably happen. Of course, e-voting, trustworthy voting. We already spent a presentation on that earlier on. Trustworthy voting with the rules of paper-based voting is possible with these kinds of algorithms. But also attributes validation, and where you can show that an attribute of your private data is true. So for instance, you would like to prove that you're over 18 years old without revealing your date of birth, or prove that your income is in a specific range, or prove that you come from abroad without revealing your home country. So in all kinds of these things, you can use these algorithms. I go to 6, that's the conclusion, and that's my last slide. You all made it to this slide. So zero knowledge proof, is it the new gold? Yes, because it allows to do public things with private data. I showed you that in the demonstration. The server can do things with your data without knowing what data it is handling. It sounds impossible, but it is possible because I demonstrated it to you. And yes, it combines transparency with privacy. That's the almost impossible combination. And I think this could be done with these algorithms, but there are a few bugs. The algorithms that are used for these use cases are pretty tough. They need a lot of, they are expensive. So you need big machines, or you need time, or whatever. It's going to cost something. It is also pretty complicated. It's pretty complicated to come up with the right way to approach these use cases. It's pretty complicated to build these things. So we have to make it more simple in order to make it usable. Yeah, and then again, we are the BlockchainLab Drenthe, but was this even a blockchain presentation, you can ask? Is this not a different field, much broader or connected, or I don't know that yet. And it could be that zero knowledge proof might not be a blockchain driven topic, but it might be GDPR or privacy driven topic in the end. So these are just a few thoughts. Okay, I think I've come to the end of my presentation.
Okay, Jeroen, maybe just to add to that. I mean, I know that zero knowledge proof is a different way of thinking, right? You're trying to prove something without revealing the information. I saw a very nice application of zero knowledge proof this week, where astronomers use zero knowledge proof. They have these large telescopes looking at the sky, and they see all these stars, which are suns, of course, and there are planets around these stars, like the planet Earth is revolving around the sun. But you cannot see a planet which doesn't emit light. You can see the sun, but you cannot see the planet because it doesn't emit the light. You can see the moon because it bounces light from the sun of its surface, and then we see it. But on a very large distance, you cannot see that. How do they prove there is a planet revolving around that star? Well, they do that in the same way that zero knowledge proof does. So they observe the light coming from that star, and they observe that over a longer period of time. And when they see that the light which it emits becomes dimmer, less light, then there must be something between us and that star, probably a planet. So even if you cannot see the planet, you know that it's there. So you have proof that is something revolving around that sun, and you see something is there without seeing it.
Yeah.
Right? It's a form of zero knowledge proof they use in a very practical way.
Yeah.
But it's very very complicated to make that thought switch in your head. All right. A few weeks ago, I spoke to somebody. We did a zero knowledge proof exercise with cars. Right. I told him pick any card and tell me if it's a red or a black card. Right. And now you have to prove me that it's a red card without showing me the red card.
Yeah.
How can you prove that? Well, the only way to prove that is do the opposite, right? He showed me 26 black cards. So I saw all the black cards. So now the only cards that are left are red cards. I don't know which card he had. I only know it was a red one because he showed me all the black ones. So you have to think in another way, and it's a very intriguing to use these kind of techniques in zero knowledge proof. And even now at this moment where we're in this pandemic and everybody's talking about revealing information about if they are having corona without revealing their identity is a very hot topic. So I see also a question about that in the chat. Siebrand asks, should zero knowledge proof be usable for the instance the Corona app in the Dutch government is developing? Absolutely. Right. I think that's one of the most important things we have to work with in that app, because everybody is afraid of giving their information, their privacy data. But you will see Danny will probably be talking about that also, because I saw the title of his talk, and the word pandemic was shining through. So I'm going to switch to Danny now. Danny, you're on the screen. Please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll start your presentation.
Yes, well, hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 30 people right now. Quite a different setup than being face-to-face in my home office, or in my Baan 8 office. Yes, I will talk about pandemics and blockchains. So I do that from the context where I see some things in the media, and I think, well, what do they mean with that? And is that something that's interesting for me? Yeah, so this topic also came up on my mind for this meetup, and it's something that's really going in a very fast pace the last 2 weeks. I'm a programmer. I try to comprehend the technical aspects of blockchain, and I'm really eager to use it in real life applications. And in that context, I did some little desk research on how these pandemic prevention apps work, or tend to work, and what would be their added value when using blockchain technology. So over to my first slide. That is the first one with text, Adri. The current pandemic, COVID-19, a little bit recap. Relatively low mortality rate compared to other viruses, but but very much more contagious. It stays active on surfaces, it seems, so that it may be there for a couple of days on, for instance, doorknobs and toilet seats, etc. Infected people without symptoms can spread the virus. That's an indication. There's no proof for that yet. If you are infected, then you are cured if you have no problems for 24 hours. That means no fever, no nose cold, and no cough. And there is a relatively long incubation period for 14 days. These are things that I just read on the RIVM website, so I don't know if they are true, but they are mainstream knowledge. The Netherlands tries to attack this pandemic using building up group immunity, and they want to manage the stress on the healthcare. I think those two are the main approaches. They are not trying to prevent people from getting coronavirus, and I think that's impossible. So if you are sensitive to the virus, you will get it. And that means about 50% or 60% of the people in the Netherlands will get it. Well, okay. One of their solutions to reach this goal is that they will have a targeted lockdown, and the targeted means that it targets the people who are causing the stress on the healthcare. So they forbid visitors to elderly people. They close schools. They call it social distancing. Avoid contact with people at least 1.5 meters of distance. And they close all public places. So that's basically the solution, I think. Can we go to the next slide, Adrie? Yeah. So to my greatest fear, 1.5 weeks ago, there was a press conference with the minister, De Jonge, and he says, well, we will build apps, and that means that the government will use IT to solve problems, and they want to use it within 2 weeks. Oh, that's very good. And they want to help from businesses and organizations with that. And the apps, they have, I think they are in 3 categories. The first category is self-assessment and remote care. In there you do some diagnostics and you can monitor your own health, and maybe with some smart sensing or a remote contact with a physician or somebody who is capable of doing the diagnostics. The second part of the second style of app is the tracking and the proximity, the physical contact. And the third one is support for a transition strategy, whatever it means. They call it the third wave of apps. And in my presentation, I will focus on the second, the tracking of the physical contact. They have, I think, probably it's very difficult to do 100% physical testing of people. So I think they try to come up with a solution where the apps will track physical contact so that you can prevent 100% testing. The government made a call for participation to companies. They had 750 callers, and the coming weekend of 17 to 18 April, they will have a hackathon. And in that hackathon, they will have a selection of 5 of these callers to put to the test. And this test will be publicly available, I think. Now, whatever this app will do on part 2, the tracking of the physical contact, it should be in addition to what our current public health services does, the testing part, the GGD. They want to make it open source, but they will do it disclosed source. So the source will be visible, but to experts, I think, under a non-disclosure agreement. And of course, privacy first. It's very important for the government. So that way they will. This is their scope for the tracking of the physical contact. Adrie, next slide. Every country in the world is facing this crisis, and every country is doing their own measures and mitigation. Some of them are a bit unfriendly. For instance, Taiwan, they have something that's called an electronic fence. The goal is to stop people from running around and spreading infection, like it's The Walking Dead with a horde of zombies. And it uses mobile phone data, so your cell phone, your GSM contact with your location. And with that, they control where you are. And if you go outside without your phone, then you will get a fine. And if you go outside with your phone and you're not allowed, you will also get a fine. So that's not so nice. But also a civilized country like Canada. Not that Taiwan is not civilized, but also Canada is thinking about a telecom-supported track and trace. And telco-supported is that the telcos are obliged to give up their position data on phones. Adri, next slide. Singapore has a bit more friendly approach, which is called Trace Together. I did not find a lot about the inner workings, but there is a nice picture. And this is based on the Bluetooth capabilities of phones in combination with an app which registers this Bluetooth proximity. Yeah. So, Adri, next slide. In Europe, there is a initiative which is called PEPP/PT.org, and this is a consortium of a lot of organizations. And one of their current products is it's a protocol. It's called GP3T, which stands for Decentralized Privacy Preserving Proximity Tracing. And well, it says that says it all. It's meant for tracing your proximity with preserving your privacy and storing it decentralized. And to start with decentralized, that means that every data is stored on your mobile phone in the app. The privacy preserving part means that nobody knows who met who and who is proxim to who. And the tracing has some smart technology features where the Bluetooth technology is used to see where and at what time you are in what location. So that starts from left top to right bottom. That's Alice. Hey, once again, there's Alice and Bob in the standard crypto stories. Alice phone broadcasts a random message every few minutes. And then Alice starts to sit next to Bob, and their phones are exchanging. So in the third picture, both phones remember what they said and what they heard in the past 14 days. And then at one point, Alice finds out that she has been influenced by the virus. She is contagious. And then she sends a message to a hospital saying that she has the symptoms. The hospital the hospital takes care of transmitting the earlier set messages from Alice to Bob. And so Bob will receive a message that he has been in contact with somebody who is having symptoms. So this is in a very basic cartoonish way, the workings of this DP3T protocol. And I think that whatever is being built this weekend will be based on this protocol. The EU countries they will be fools if they all work their own protocol. So let's see what comes up with these 5 contenders who built the app. This protocol, it's very nice, but it's as most protocols, it should be implemented by a software implementation. And if you don't do that correctly, you will have a lot of risks. And there are, well, a couple of 10, 12 risks. And one of them is, I think, very easy to explain. That's called the paparazzi attack. And that's an attack where you, as a paparazzi photographer, you visit sites where famous people are, and you stay there long enough to make the said and heard story. And you stay, for instance, 50 minutes, you stay next to Gordon, and then 50 minutes you stay next to Patty Gard, and then 50 minutes you stay next to Hans Kazan. And then suddenly you receive a message. Well, at that point, you are exposed to somebody with symptoms. And then you can see in your logbook, which every paparazzi photographer has, you can see next to who you are at that moment. So you can tell, oh, that was Gordon at that moment. So Gordon has the virus. That's a paparazzi attack. In the reference of this presentation, all these attacks are explained. And it is my advice to really read it and understand all these attacks so you can really make some judgment on what app is being built and what risk do you take when you install the app. So it's a word from the wise. Adrie, next one. Yeah, then we come to the mathematical part. Where Jeroen has done some groundwork. He explained homomorphic encryption in detail. And so I will not do that again. I will only list a link, dualitytech.com, which is a company co-run by a famous cryptographer called Shafi Goldwasser, of course from Israel, with such a name. And in there, they list a very simple use case based on homomorphic encryption, where you can retrieve a proof without knowing what the proof is about. So, that's in a nutshell. Adrie, next one. Well, risks. And then, of course, we have the blockchain to rescue, as usual. We at BlockchainLab Drenthe, we will have our standard saying, where we say blockchain technology, aka DLT, is useful for systems with participants who do not know each other. They have to trust each other, and there is a strong incentive to cheat. Well, it looks a bit like the previous cartoon. Adrie, you don't have to go back to the previous cartoon, but it looks a bit like where you walk around in the center of town. And you don't know the people who walk around you, but you have to trust them because you don't know if they have the virus. And if it is a paparazzi photographer, he will want to cheat. So that means yes. Adrie, next sheet. Well, one promise of the DLT technology is disintermediation. That means cut out the middleman, and that means that well, in this setup with the cartoon, it is the hospital that is the middleman, and the hospital determines, well, this person is sick. And why do we want to cut out the middleman? That's because we want to have we want to be the system. That is the governing body. So the system makes the rules, and the system follows the rules. The second part is that we want to have the parties be self-sovereign. So they have to be in control of their data, and we want no manipulation or abuse of data through the use of smart contracts. So we want to get some grip on the usage of the data. Adrie, next slide. Well, what I think is an idea, and I have not seen it already in the designs of the apps, is instead of letting the hospital make the heat map of the proximity, so the geographical layout of who has been where and when, and in contact with who. Let's have a smart contract using homomorphic encryption, do the risk assessment, and publish artifacts about the infection in a way that if you are at risk, you don't know from who. That's zero knowledge proof. And if you use the self-sovereign identity systems onboarding, so you can then you can make sure that nobody knows where you were at what time. And of course, the offboarding, when you decide it's enough, I don't want to play this app anymore, you can throw away your keys, so nobody is in control, except for yourself. Adrie, next slide. Yeah, for the third wave apps, that's one thing that Adrie stated. One of the functions in there is a registration of test results, so that you are, for instance, clear to travel or fit to fly in a zero knowledge proof way. Or for instance, if you want to enter a hospital to pay a visit to a relative, then you can use this third wave apps to prove that you have a negative test result without revealing too much information that is not needed for that assessment. So that's really nice. That's also in work in progress right now. And the second function in this third wave apps is supply chain management, digitalization and certification of assets like tests and medical supplies, which is also a problem right now with the quality of mouth masks, etc. Adrie, next slide. Well, this is my last slide. Thank you for your attention. And I have listed two URLs here. The first one will publish the coming Appathon, where you can, I think you can see live the progress that's being made by the 5 contenders. And the second one is a wiki page with the current apps per country. Very interesting, and you can do some Safari in there and try to find blockchain or homomorphic encryption. So, last slide. Yeah. The last slide is the reference where the information is stored on which this short presentation was made. Thank you all. Word back to you, Adrie.
Okay, I will make sure that the presentations are this evening or tomorrow morning under the YouTube film, so the PDFs will be available for everybody, because I don't see anybody looking at the links and typing them in as fast as they can. So yeah, are there any questions about this presentation? Of course, it's the first time that we did this in our new way, in our coronavirus crisis, pandemic, etc. way. And if there are any suggestions of things we should do any different the next time, please let us know. Like I said, the presentations will be available in a few hours. You can rewind this YouTube movie and look at some in-depth things. I know I will. Some of the details Jeroen put on the screen, I will just magnify them and look at them. I would like to thank Danny and Jeroen for their presentation. I hope that you liked our presentation in this way. The last thing I have to say is stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you the next time. I will show the date of our next meetup in a few moments. See you then.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.